Tartarus is a massive tower that emerges from the ground each night at Gekkoukan High School during the dark hours in Persona 3. It's filled with shadows and serves as the main dungeons of the games. Because it grows out of the ground every night, its layout changes at times it appears. The reason behind this is pretty interesting, but to fully understand it, we'll need to talk about its creation first. Most people remember that Tartarus was formed due to the accident during the Shadow Experiment. However, if you recall Ikusugi's explanation during his betrayal, he clarifies that Tartarus was actually created by the Kirijo group during Mitsuru grandfather era, through the gathering of many shadows. So why did the Shadow create Tartarus? Their main goal in Persona 3 is to reunite with Nyx, their original source. Many of you probably remember that the tower, along with the fully formed Death Arcana, is used to summon Nyx. But what's even more interesting is how it does this. Tartarus acts as a massive antenna, sending a signal to Nyx's dormant body on the moon, pulling it closer to Earth. This also explains why the tower continuously grows taller. It's literally trying to reach the moon.
What a shame. I was so close.
For its origin, Tartarus is both a prison and a cosmic force from Greek mythology. It lies deeper than Hades, far below the underworld itself. This is where Zeus imprisoned the Titans after the war between the Olympians and them. And it's also where those condemned to eternal punishment suffer for their crimes. One story involved Tartarus that might interest you is the tale of Orpheus. After losing his wife, he journeyed to the underworld to pledge for her return. To convince the rulers of the dead to release her, he played a sorrowful music, which was so moving that it softened their hearts. In that moment, even the soul condemned to eternal torment paused their suffering as his music echoed through the underworld, reaching even the depth of Tartarus. Now, bringing it back to Persona 3, the floor inside Tartarus actually have names, and they reference a fascinating concept from Kabbalistic and Midrashic traditions called the Seven Earths. These are 7 distinct layers or realms of Earth, each with its own meaning. For example, the first block of Tartarus is called Tebel, which represents the human inhabited world. At the very top, we have Adama, meaning ground, land, or soil. These layers of Earth share part of its name with Adam, the first human, who was created from dust of the Earth. In Persona 3, this final layer symbolizes a return to the origin, the foundation of life and all creation. That said, there's actually a hidden extra block in Tartarus with an equally interesting backstory. The Monad Door and the Monad's Passage serve as a hall that houses incredibly strong shadows and valuable items. In the original Persona 3, this wasn't just a small section, it was an entire block of 10 floors called Monad Depth, which only unlocked later in the game. The concept of monad seemed to refer to a philosophical idea about the fundamental building blocks of existence, similar to a atom in physics, but purely metaphysical. Unlike physical atoms, monads aren't material objects, they are mental or spiritual entities that can be broken down into smaller parts. The Abyss of Time is a massive underground labyrinth that served as the main dungeon in episode I guess from Persona 3 Fest. It was actually created at the same time as Tartarus, but unlike Tartarus, it was completely empty. There were no shadows inside. Because of this, the Kirijo group eventually abandoned their research on it, leaving it forgotten. In the answer, the Abyss of Time begins expanding and attracting shadows after it becomes active, triggered by C's grief over the protagonist's loss. As it grows, it eventually reaches beneath the Iwatodai domes, trapping the C's member inside a time loop. With no way out, they are forced to confront the labyrinth and uncover the truth behind its existence.
Stand aside.
Just like every dungeon we'll be discussing today, the Abyss of Time draws inspiration from other stories and media. Much like the blocks of Tartarus, each door inside the Abyss of Time has a name. However, instead of referencing the 7 Earths, the names of these doors are based on the Circle of Hell from Dante's Inferno, the first part of the Divine Comedy. But the references don't stop at just the names. episode, I guess, borrows even more from the Divine Comedies, especially in its core narrative. In Inferno, Dante finds himself lost in the dark forest and is later guided by a Roman poet, Virgil, who tells him that the only way out is by descending through the circle of hell. This directly parallels C's journey in episode Aegis, where they find themselves trapped in a time loop and must descend into the abyss of time to move forward. And the connection only gets deeper from here. As Cis venture downwards, they follow the shadowy figure of the protagonist, much like how Dante followed Virgil through hell. But in the Divine Comedy, Virgil is not the only one who guides Dante. Later in the poem, he's also led by Beatrice, his beloved, who takes over as his guide and lends him toward enlightenment. This mirror episode, I guess, where Cis isn't guided just by one figure. While the shadowy presence of the protagonist draw them deeper into the abyss, Mementos also serve as the companion and guides.
You'll find that there will be many opportunities to revisit your past here.
What's that supposed to mean?
With the influence of both figures, the team is able to navigate the labyrinth and uncover the truth waiting at the end. Eventually, they reach a final door labeled Empyrean. What's fascinating about this is that Empyrean is not one of the circle of hell from Inferno. Instead, it's the highest section of heaven in Paradiso, the final part of the Divine Comedy. In Dante's story, Empyrean is the realm of the purest souls and the dwelling place of gods. This makes it a fitting place for Cis to confront the shadow of the protagonist. When he first passed away, they never has a chance to say goodbye. They didn't even know he was gone until later. While they still don't understand why he died, this moment allowed them to finally be there with him as he fades away, giving them a partial sense of closure. Even if questions remain, simply being present for a loved one's final moments is a significant part of processing loss. Now comes my favorite parts of the story and this dungeon. As the climax approaches, Cis find themselves divided, forced to fight each other inside an arena called Purgatorio. Once again, this is a direct nod to Purgatorio, the second section of the Divine Comedy. In this part of the poem, after leaving hell, Dante climbed the mountain of Purgatory, where repentant souls purify themselves before entering paradise. This setting is incredibly symbolic, serving as the perfect place for Cis to confront their emotions and internal conflicts. Earlier in the Abyss of Times, flowing sand could be seen throughout the dungeon, resembling an hourglass and symbolizing their journey through times, moving them ever closer to the past. But here, in Purgatorio, they face something different. Embedded in the floor of the Colosseum is a large, armless clock, frozen in place. A stark contrast to the flowing sand from before. This imagery reinforces the moment's significance. Up until now, Cis has been traveling backward, uncovering pieces of the past. But here, they must make a choice. Either they confront their emotion and move forward, or they remain trapped in stillness forever.
Aegis-san, how do you think we should use the keys?
I am the past or the present? I'm just not sure.
Ultimately, the Abyss of Time serves as a thematic reversal of Tartarus. In Persona 3, Cis ascend a massive tower to face the end. But in episode Aegis, they must descend, traveling backward through time and confronting their memories before they can truly move forwards. The Midnight Channel, or the TV world, isn't technically a dungeon itself, but rather a vast space that houses all the dungeons in Persona 4. Unlike other Persona games where dungeons have set design, the personal dungeons in Persona 4 are randomly generated, functioning more like Tartarus from Persona 3 and Mementos from Persona 5. Just like the other dungeon we are discussing today, Midnight Channel exists within the collective unconscious. However, it was covered in fog by Izanami. She did this as part of the social experiment to observe humanity. testing whether people would prefer to remain in the comfortable illusion, seeing and hearing only what they want, or confront the unknown truth. This theme directly paralleled the myth of Izanagi and Izanami from the Shinto belief. In the story, after Izanami dies, she descends into Yomi, the Japanese underworld. Her husband and sibling Izanagi, heartbroken and unwilling to accept her death, follow her into Yomi to bring her back, without knowing what awaits him. He entered Yomi through a slope called Yomusu Hirasaga, which in Persona 4 is the name of the final dungeon. When Izanagi finally finds Izanami, she is shrouded in darkness and warns him not to light up the place. But driven by curiosity and fear, he disobeys and illuminates the darkness, only to discover that the woman he loved has become a rotting corpse. Horrified by the truth, Izanagi flees, with Izanami chasing after him in rage. In the end, he seals the entrance of Yomi with a giant boulders, forever cutting off the underworld from the land of the living. This ancient tale serves as a cautionary story about seeking the truth. Sometimes what we search for is not what we want to find. However, Persona 4 takes this legend and reinterprets it with a more optimistic perspective. In the game, just like Izanagi, the protagonist seeks out Izanami. And just like Izanagi, he illuminates the darkness. But unlike the myth, this story doesn't end in tragedy. After the investigation team defeat Izanami, the fog in the Midnight Channel disappears, revealing a vast, beautiful lake. This powerful conclusion delivers a different message that while stepping out of your comfort zone and facing reality may be painful, choosing to stay in ignorance means never experiencing the beauty beyond the fog. It also makes me realize something else. Without lighting up Yomi, Izanagi would have remained trapped in illusion, clinging to the past and believing he could return to the life he once shared with Izanami. In the end, whether the truth is beautiful or terrifying, we must face it in order to grow and move forward. Rewinding back a bit before all this happened, the investigation team first learned about the Midnight Channel through an urban legend. According to the rumor, if you watch your TV at midnight on a rainy night, a strange broadcast will appear, supposedly revealing the image of your soulmate. This legend may actually be inspired by an old Japanese urban myth from the early 2000s called the NNN spatial broadcast. According to the story, if you turn on your TV around 2:30 a.m., you might see a strange broadcast long after all regular programming has ended. This eerie broadcast supposedly features a scrolling list of names, similar to movie credit. Sound harmless enough, right? But once the credit finished rolling, the screen displayed the ominous message: tomorrow's sacrifice. Given that Persona 4 was released in 2008, this urban legend was still fresh at the time, making it a likely inspiration for the Midnight Channel. Now, another interesting detail about the Midnight Channel is the color of the fog inside it. Unlike the grayish fog we usually associate with misty environments, the fog in the TV world has a distinct yellow tint. In reality, there are only a few cases where gases or vapor take on this color. The first most well-known are sulfurous smoke. Sulfurous smoke occurs when coal or fossil fuel are burned in large quantities, releasing sulfur dioxide into the air. One of the most infamous cases of this was London Great Smog of 1952, which caused thousands of deaths due to extreme air pollution. The second case is mustard gas, which was first used as a chemical weapon during World War I. This gas is highly toxic, causing severe blister, blindness, and lung damage. Given how Persona 4 used fog as a central theme, both as a literal and metaphorical barrier between people and the truth, the unsettling yellow mist of the Midnight Channel may symbolize something more sinister, reflecting the theme of deception, danger, and the consequences of ignorance. Mementos, also known as Everyone Palace, is a vast subway-like dungeon that continuously extends downward. As part of the metaverse, it exists within the collective unconscious, formed by humanity's deep-seated desire for structure, order, and stabilities. This shared mindset ultimately manifests as a massive, inescapable prison in the metaverse, reinforcing the idea that people willingly trap themselves in a system of control. Like Tartarus and the Abyss of Time, Mementos is divided into multiple sections called paths, each containing a set number of floors. However, the names of these sections aren't just random. They are actually taken from Qliphoth, which appear in the Tree of Death from Kabbalistic teaching. To be clear, the version of the Tree of Death referenced in the games is based on William G. Gray Tree of Evil. Now, the concept of the Qliphoth and the Tree of Death is incredibly complex, and to fully understand it, you'll need to understand a variety of other concepts first. But I'll try my best to simplify it as much as possible while keeping things on the surface level. In Kabbalistic teachings, the universe is structured by the Tree of Life, which consists of 10 divine spheres called Sephiroth. Each sphere represents a different aspect of creation, such as wisdom, mercy, and strength. Opposing this divine structure is the Tree of Death, which embodies chaos, impurity, and forces that lead people away from divine truth. The spheres within the trees are known as Qliphoths. As the game progresses, this Qliphoth even manifests in the real world as humanity gives up their control. It's worth keeping the Tree of Life and Tree of Death in mind, as Mementos from both the base games and Persona 5 Royal is largely built around this concept. But for now, let's travel deeper into Mementos all the way to the lowest floor.
What the hell is this?
Some big fossil-looking thing. So this must be the treasure.
Wait, look on the side. It's the train running down to Mementos. So this is where that crowd of people was trying to reach?
The final area is known as the Depth of Mementos, sometimes referred to as the Prison of Sloth or Regression. Down here, the environment transforms into an eerie prison built from a mixture of rock and iron. But the most interesting part of this dungeon is the final room, where the Phantom Thieves come face to face with the Holy Grail. While many people might immediately associate the Grail with the Arthurian legend, in Persona 5, it is more likely a reference to the Holy Grail from Christian tradition. In Christianity, the Grail represents divine grace, eternal life, and salvation, concepts that fit perfectly into Persona 5's central conflict, humanity's willingness to surrender their freedom in exchange for salvation. The prison itself also has an important symbolic meaning. The massive structure filled with cells is based on the concept of panopticons. A panopticon is a circular prison where all the cells are arranged around a central watchtower. However, the central watchtower has one-way visibility. The key idea behind this design is that prisoners never know whether they are being watched at any given moment, which forces them to regulate their own behavior out of fear. This adds another layer to Yadabov's title as the God of Control. He doesn't just control humanity through force, he makes people believe they are being watched, leading them to police themselves and willingly submit to his rule. This concept of self-imposed civilians and societal control is one of the most powerful themes in Persona 5, making Mementos not just dungeon, but a statement about how people allow themselves to become prisoners of their own complacency. Now, you might think we have already covered a lot, but we are far from done. And this next part is really cool. After the player returns to face the Holy Grail, it transforms, or rather, reveals itself as Yadabov. What makes this reveal so interesting is the cutscene where the massive structure sealing Yadabov's body ascends into the sky before opening up to unveil its full form. This moment is actually a reference to one of the origins of Yadabov in Gnosticism. In Gnostic belief, Yadabov was created by Sophia, a divine being known as an Aeon. However, she acted independently, attempting to create life without the permission of the true God. As a result, she gave birth to Yadabov, an imperfect and ignorant being. Realizing her mistake, Sophia hid Yadabov away inside a palace in the cloud, separating him from the divine realm. This myth is beautifully mirrored in Persona 5, where Yadabov is initially concealed within a massive structure surrounded by clouds before emerging as the game's true antagonist. Now, let's talk about the royal part of the game. In Persona 5 Royal, Mementos is taken over by Marugi, who reshaped and expanded into a towering structure resembling a massive control room. This new section is called the Path of Death. If you remember our discussion about the Tree of Death and its connection to Mementos, this is where things take a fascinating turns. Unlike the previous paths in Mementos, named after the clay pot of the Tree of Evil, the Path of Death actually comes from the Tree of Life. Instead of clay pot, the Tree of Life consists of 10 sephiroths, divine spheres that represent different aspects of creation. However, Death is unique. It's a hidden sephira usually not included among the 10 official sephiroths, but it represents knowledge, unity, and the bridge between divine wisdom and human understanding. The contrast between Mementos under Yadabov and Marugi is particularly striking. Under Yadabov's rules, Mementos embody Tree of Death, a hellish domain where people abandon free will for an illusion of others. In contrast, the Tree of Life represents divine creation, aligning with Marugi's wish to create paradise free from suffering. The Phantom Thief's journey is the complete opposite of C's path through Tartarus and the Abyss of Time. In Persona 3, C's first ascend Tartarus, a massive tower, seeking truth at the highest point of it, where they confront the cycle of life and death. Later in the answer, they descend into the Abyss of Time, forced to confront their past before they can move forward. In Persona 5, however, the Phantom Thief begins by descending into the depth of Mementos, a prison for lost soul, much like hell itself. Then, in Persona 5 Royal, they must ascend the Path of Death, a stairwell leading to a false heaven constructed by Marugi. This inversion of theme is absolutely brilliant. While Persona 3 focuses on fate, death, and accepting the past, Persona 5 explores rebellion, free will, and the struggle to shape the future. And the way Mementos reflect this journey, dragging players into the depth of despair before forcing them to climb toward an artificial paradise, perfectly encapsulate the game's core message that true freedoms come from not escaping reality, but to confronting it.
Please, let go of my hand. Your eyes are as bright and honest as ever. You keep your head up no matter what. I must have always been afraid. Afraid you and I wouldn't wish for the same reality. So bright.
If you made it to the end of the video, you might be a crazy person. Therefore, you should subscribe to the channel and join me and other crazy people who love overanalyzing things. But if you are still not convinced, how about watch another video that's just as good, if not more interesting, than this one.